What's up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Mind Method Podcast. This is so exciting. We are here with the one and only Veena Jetti. Veena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. This has been such a long time coming. It's been in the works, so I'm so excited to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Veena and I, we met on an airplane on our way to community camp as part of the Sub 2 community.
Matt was low-key fangirling. Like,
he
could low-key not stop.
I'm like, that's Veena Jetti. That's like,
Veena Jetti's on our flight. It's Veena Jetti. Yeah, I have to go talk to her.
I saw her squat up.
You gave me that book. I have it in my office. I put it next to I keep every book that someone signs, like that they write and they like sign and give to me. I keep all of them.
Love that. Yeah, actually, The Science of Getting Rich just came out this week. I'll send you the link. So the movie is done and it is out, and we've got premieres in LA, in Australia, Singapore. Like we're going everywhere, global. Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
It launched this week.
It launched this week. I'll send you the link.
Please do. I'll share it. Like, tag me on social and I'll share it on my social, because I think people will really like it, especially my audience, because we talk a lot about like money and generational wealth, and we need to know the science of getting rich.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone should know that, right? So such a good book.
Yeah. What is the science?
Well, you tell us. Yeah, I think you've got it pretty figured out.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is a science. I think it's a happy accident is what I would call it sometimes.
Some days I feel the same way. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, Veena, tell us, you have done so much. You are so accomplished. You are a mom. You're doing it all. And so, like, for some of our listeners, they may not know who you are, which to me is mind-blowing. Tell us, where do you come from? I want to hear your journey.
Yeah. Okay. So for people that don't know me, I'm Veena Jetti. I am a large multifamily owner operator. I've now transacted on over $1 billion in my own portfolio. So, we've done some things. We know a few things now. Yeah. But the thing that I am like most interested in, and the thing that is most important to me right now, is a mission of impact, and making sure that if I'm the first to do something, that I'm not the last to do it, and making sure that we create space for people that are not like 80-year-old white dudes from Wharton and Harvard. Like, there has to be space for diversity and equity and inclusion. And I'm really grateful, because one of my friends, Jamie, had pointed out to me, this was a way long time ago, when I was talking about like diversity. She's like, but you're not talking about people who don't have the pedigree of an Ivy League. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Like, I didn't recognize that there's like a lack of diversity in that regard too, like educational background. And so, that's why diversity is important, because she is not from an Ivy League. She didn't even go to college, I don't think. And like, I went to college, and it didn't even cross my mind that this is something that needs space, and this is somebody that needs a voice at that table. And so that's why diversity is important, because it helps us recognize our blind spots there. And so that's really what I'm on, a mission of impact nowadays. You'll find me in, the multi-community, and making sure that other people are learning how to build generational wealth as well.
I love that. I mean, it's truly inspiring when the leaders in the community, and you are truly a leader in this community, that put so much stock into having that purpose. And it's not just to get wealthy for themselves. And I see that so often, and I'm sure you do too. And to see someone that's leading the space who is actually doing it with certain purpose I love that. And you've got our full support. I think you're amazing. And we just want everybody to know you and hear about you and what you're up to, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, like attracts like, and I really have noticed that, especially in the last few years, because I've been intentional, and I've been trying to show up as a better version of myself, which has been hard. It's a journey for me too. But when I've shown up in abundance, and when I've shown up with integrity, and when I've shown up with just this unwavering moral code, what I've found is that other people who share these morals and values, it's like a moth to flame, and it just amplifies the output. And I think that's so special.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, your vibe attracts your tribe, right?
Yes, yes, there's truth to that. I can confirm this.
Absolutely. I want to tell the story about what happened to me at Squat Up with you and your lead of your media, because I
Oh,
told you briefly. So like this, just a very quick story, because we are in the mindset space and we are in the personal development space. I wanted to go to my room because my phone was out of battery and I had been networking, and I was on my way to my seat and I had like a baseball hit me in the head. And this thought came into my head that said, stop right now, turn around and go to your room for the charger. And I was like, that's so weird. I already walked all the way to the front row to the VIP seat to sit down. And now I'm so weird. I didn't think I was trying to sit down. So I walk out of the hall, and 10 steps out of the hall, this woman comes running up to me and she's like, I've been looking for you everywhere. And I'm like, holy cow, who are you? And she's like, I'm Veena Jetti's head of PR. And I'm like,
I
oh,
love
that's
it.
amazing. I'm like, do you believe in I said, do you believe in the law of attraction? And she's like, stop. She's like, Venus gonna love you. I'm like, and then I told her, I'm like, do you know that I was just about to sit down, but something told me to come back this way. It was my intuition.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, that's insane. I'm like, how have you been looking for me? She's like, oh, I've heard you talking about the mindset and law of
Yeah.
attraction. And I was like, oh my God, it absolutely blew my mind. And then I just had a feeling from that point on. I'm like, I'm going to meet Veena. I don't know how, I don't know when. Because like I had just seen you on
That's
stage
so crazy.
and I'm like, I'm going to meet her. I don't know
Fast
how.
forward to our flight to Montana, and
then boom, there you are. The universe put you on the same flight from Dallas.
Yeah,
And
because we see each
it's
other in
crazy.
Orlando.
Yeah, we didn't see each other in Orlando.
No, I
No.
don't think we did.
No, well, you were one of the keynote speakers at Squat Up, so I was just the little guy in the crowd of the 3,000 people.
I was literally like 90% of the time I was like out because I'm like an extreme extrovert. So I'm like, I don't want to miss anybody. I don't want to miss anything. I didn't care how many people were there. I was like, I'm going to try to meet everybody. Obviously, I didn't, but I did try. But I'm surprised we didn't run across each other. So that is crazy. We were on the same flight because you don't
Yeah.
even live in the city that I live in. Like you're in a different country.
Yes. We flew from Toronto and it
was a
routed us.
connection.
It was a connection through
Yeah.
Dallas. And we're like, why are we flying through Dallas? It's
I
like
know.
to get to
Out of the
Montana,
way.
it's like down and then back up.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Convenient. I
And
mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy. Well, I'm so glad that happened.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Likewise.
Yes, us too.
So I want to hear from you. How has any of those laws, the law of vibration, the law of attraction, any of those fundamental mindset principles, which ones of those have really truly impacted your life?
Okay, so do you want to know the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Always.
wasn't until like 3 years ago, maybe two, even. What is this, 2024? So about 3 years ago, that I started doing any kind of personal development or any kind, like intentional personal development. Because I always thought, like, when people would talk about like manifesting, I was like, okay.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, you're like crunchy granola, fruit and nuts.
Yes.
And I say that lovingly because my mom is like totally crunchy. She's like, she would wear a tinfoil hat if she thought it was gonna like stop like neurotoxins from entering through her cell phone, right? Like that's who my mom is. And so I've always been like, no, we believe in science. We believe in like facts and reality, right? Like I've always been like kind of conditioned to think like that. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I started actively working on like mindset. And now what I recognize is how powerful your mind is. Like I did not recognize just the sheer power your mind has.
Mm-hmm.
And now I recognize that, and I'm so intentional with it with my kids more than anything else. So like just the other day, my daughter was trying to reach something, and she's like kind of short. I mean, so am I, so whatever. But she was like, "Oh, I can't reach it," and I knew she could reach it. She just wasn't like trying. You have to get like on your. Well, you're tall, man, so I don't know if you can relate to this, but for others that are short,
He sees me do it, so it's okay. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're like, you just have to stretch that like tiny bit more. And if she did that, I knew she would be able to reach the thing. And she was trying to get down a book. And I was like, okay, you have to try. And she said, no, I can't do it. And she didn't even try. And I was like, she was like, can you help me? I can't do it. And I said, absolutely not. She goes, Mommy, you said you would always help me. I was like, I will always help you. And this is me helping you, is telling you first you have to try. So in our house, we always say first we have to, and then they'll go try. So I do this with everything. Like you have to at least try, even if you don't succeed, you have to try to do the hard thing. So she like goes and she like tries to reach it. I see her struggling. She's like a little too short. So she comes back, she's like, Mommy, I tried, but I couldn't do it. And I go, yeah, you didn't do it. And she goes, oh, Mommy, that's one of my goals. I failed at something today. Because I have them do, their three goals, right? Is learn something, help someone, and fail at something. So every day I ask them to fail at something. She's like, I failed. And I was like, that's right. And it's not because I want her to fail. It's because I don't want her to be afraid of failing, because that means she tried something she didn't think she could do. So I'm like intentional about it now. Now that I like pay attention, I understand how powerful your mind is. I recognize now like manifestation, and this is for anybody who's like kind of like me, that's like, okay, that was like a bridge too far, a little too crunchy for me, right? Here's what it is. Your brain can't think in the negative, right? So if I tell you guys, okay, don't think about an elephant right now,
then you think about an elephant.
Yeah. You're immediately thinking about an elephant, right? Because you can't think in the negative. And, it's and Simon Sinek talks about this, but it's the same way like when skiers are skiing, and I'm not a skier, so maybe I'm wrong, but this is what he says. When a skier is skiing, they don't say, don't hit the trees. They go, follow the snow, right? Like you guys are Canadians. You know this better than I do for sure.
That's true. Accurate.
Next to our igloos.
Okay, yes. So this is right. Okay, good. I should have fact checked it before I took it as word, but I love Simon Sinek. So if he says it, I'm like, oh, it must be true. He put it on the internet. But it's because your brain can't think in the negative. And so I'm really, really careful about the things I say around my daughters, how I speak to myself around my daughter, when I'm not with my daughters too, but even more so when I'm around my kids. Because if they see me speaking like this to myself, then what are they going to believe? And what does my own mind believe, right? And so when we're talking about manifestation, this is the thing that changed it for me. When I made the connection between your mind can't think in the negative, and you can only do things that you can imagine doing. And when you put those two together, that's what manifestation is for. So when you imagine yourself walking into that C-suite for that job that you want, when you imagine yourself closing that multifamily deal that you're trying to get, when you imagine yourself, buying that car that your parents couldn't afford, when you imagine yourself donating $100,000 to charity and you like visualize it, your brain doesn't know that you didn't actually do those things. Your brain doesn't know that that's not real, because your brain's really bad at deciphering what's true and what's not. And this is part of why like eyewitnesses are so wildly unreliable, because once they've imagined it or thought about it, the facts can completely change and your brain doesn't know. And it's not that your brain's trying to trick you. It's just, it's your ego protects you, right? This is how we are designed. So when you know that piece of information, you can start being more intentional about how you manifest things, right? So like you're saying like, oh, I'm going to meet Veena and we're going to connect and we're going to do big things together, right? Like you essentially like manifested that in a way.
Oh yeah.
Your brain is like looking for positive bias, like confirmation bias to make that true. And now like all these months later, here we are on a podcast and like we've been chatting in like Instagram, and like it just is going to keep domino affecting, right? Because like the next thing now is like, how can we do a deal together, or how can we collab more? And so that will happen. It's just a matter of time for that to happen.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you said so much that I want to get into. One thing that you said that I think is really important, especially coming from you, because you've had a lot of success in your career. And that is the message that you're giving to your daughters about the fear of failure. Because so many of our clients are just so afraid to do that deal and make a mistake or take that next step because what if? And they get this paralysis, the analysis paralysis, and they get stuck. And then a year goes by and they still haven't moved forward. So you can probably speak to the fact that having some failure is a part of success, and you should
Yeah,
celebrate the failures, because the more that you fail, the bigger the success is on the other side.
absolutely. I think the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that understand that failure is just a stepping stone to success.
Yeah.
There's no great business person, leader, no great politician, no great owner operator that has ever done anything remarkable without failing somewhere along the line. And quite frankly, probably many times.
Failure is essential.
Failure is absolutely a vital part to success. Because the other thing, too, and the reason I tell my kids this is because fear will kill more dreams than anything else will, right? And
Yes.
so when I take away their fear of failure, I'm giving them permission to try things that they don't think that they can do. And they won't know until they try. They have to try. And that's why I always say you have to try. You have to fail at something every single day. And that's so important to how what shapes their mindset, because now they look for times to fail. They look for
Mhm.
opportunities to fail, and they're excited when they do. When I take out their fear of failure, it gives them permission, right? And so I actually take it a step further. I don't just ask them to fail at something. When they tell me they failed at something, I celebrate it like they just walked on the moon.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
oh my
amazing.
gosh, this is amazing. You really failed at that. Okay, tell me, how hard did you try? Okay, what are you going to do next time? Okay, here's what we can do. So, like, I think of my role with them as being like a co pilot, right? And this is a concept I took from Dr. Becky Goodinside. She's phenomenal. If you don't follow her, you totally should. She's like a parenting psychologist expert. And she basically has this whole premise that like every kid is good inside. And,
Love
you know,
it.
so it's like the same thing I tell my girls. I'm like, you're a good girl. You made a bad choice.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, what's the good news about a bad choice? And they'll go, it's never too late to make a good choice, because I don't want them boxed into a label. And
Hmm.
Yeah.
like instilling the growth mindset in them and the abundance mindset in them is saying these things and giving them permission to make a mistake and then do better immediately or the next time. And so, whenever they fail at something, I celebrate the failure, and then I coach them through what can we do better or differently next time so that you can be successful. And then we talk about what it took, and then when they actually accomplish it, we cheer. And I never ever ever give them praise when they do something that's too easy for them, which I think
Mm.
is like the other side of that coin, right? Like, because
Yeah.
especially this daughter that joined us here, um she'll go, mommy, I know what 2 plus 2 is. And I'm like, okay, what? She's
Hmm.
like, 4. And I'm like, yeah, good job, that's way too easy, try a harder one.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
she'll go, I know what 4,000 plus 4,000 is. And I'll go, what? And she'll go, 8,000. I go, I think that was too easy. Do a different one. And then she'll go, okay, I know what 8,000 plus, and she's 5. So these are big numbers for her, right? She goes, I
Hmm.
know what 8,000 plus 8,000 is. I'm like, what? She's like, oh, can I count? And I go, yeah. So she'll like take out her fingers and count to 8 and then add it to 16. And then she'll go, 16,000. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, great job. Yes, you worked so hard to get there. I saw you counting. So it's also like complimenting the process, not the outcome.
Love
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't ever go like, oh my gosh, you drew this perfect picture. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you decide what colors to use? This is such a colorful picture. I'll like make an observation, but I'm never like, oh my gosh, you colored perfectly in the lines. Because the goal is not perfection. The goal is not for them to do it the fastest, right? The goal is for them to fall in love with the process and learn along the way and have the process along the way. Oh my gosh, she's like getting just
Oh, I
Oh,
completely.
no,
love
it's
that.
fine that she's there. It's all
Yeah,
good.
100%. She can
As
join.
parents, we appreciate it.
Yes.
We have a 5-year-old also. Our boys are 5 and 7, so we
Hmm.
can relate 100%,
Hmm.
and especially with the finger counting.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that you are instilling these things into your children at such a young age.
Hmm.
We,
Yeah.
I can tell you this, I'm going to take the failure thing from you and I am going to implement that,
Hmm.
because we do things with our kids that are mindset related as well. Like we ask them what they're grateful for every day. And just the other day, my son came home and he had drawn the stick person from
Yeah.
Bob Proctor,
from our program.
right?
Yeah.
Bob Proctor's
The
stick
mind.
person with the mind, with the conscious and subconscious. And he drew it at school and he's 5. And I was like, I don't know if I ever showed him that.
Yeah.
I was like, that is remarkable. I
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
so, and to see it sink in, and I'm sure you can relate when you see the values that you're instilling in the lessons and they sink in so quickly, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, what did
It's
they say?
huge.
Until 5 is like 90% of their brain grows until they're 5. And then, I mean, your brain doesn't really stop developing until you're 25. So 20 more years to pour into them.
I know, that's a lot. There's a lot of love we get to pour in,
it's
which is great.
exciting. It's fun to see their perception of the world, right? And see the world from their eyes. Are they interested in the real estate? How are they watching what you're doing? Do they understand yet?
Yes. So they know like general finance concepts. So like they can tell you what interest is in 5-year-old terms, right? They know about contracts. They know that you can borrow money. They love, love, love to speak. And so anytime I'm like on a stage and they come with me, they will just march right up to the stage. They will take that microphone right out of my hands and they'll introduce themselves. They'll be like, "Hi, I'm Veena Jetti, and I'm a multifamily investor." And then Vivana will say, "I'm Vivana Jetti, and I'm a multifamily investor. We're investors." And I'm like, "Okay, good job. Yeah, we are." So yeah, they know about multifamily. Whether they're interested or not, who knows? I mean, this week they want to be police officers.
Mm-hmm.
That's their ambition right now because they want to put bad guys away. And, you know, sometimes they want to be like doctors, which I'm like, do you though?
Mm-hmm.
Do you, don't you
They
want to
work
be
so
an
hard and
It's
so
hard.
long hours, those doctors. Oh my
It's
gosh.
hard.
Well,
Yeah.
their dad's a doctor, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to be an anesthesiologist. And I'm like, no, there's other things.
That was us with our boys wanted to be police officers. Like I was in law enforcement for
Yeah.
17 years. So it was just like, especially for boys, they're like,
Oh yeah.
I'm
So
doing what dad
exciting.
did. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. No, and
Right?
well, I'm like, why do you want to be a police officer? Like, so I mean, as a mother, I'm like, please no, because this is
Yeah.
dangerous. No, uh, but you know, you don't want to stifle whatever their dreams are. But at the same time, I'm like, wouldn't it be so much better to be an investor?
Yeah.
And they're like, no,
Oh,
you know,
Yeah.
but to your point, I love that I get to like kind of see the world again for the first time through their eyes. That's my favorite
mhm.
part. So, you know, I'm sure I wanted to be like a police officer at some point in my life.
Oh yeah,
They're
all
cool.
kids do. For sure. And when
Yeah.
they're 13 or 14, just have them have a call with me and I'll let them know the real side of policing and it's not all it's
Oh,
cracked up to be.
yeah. I mean, we're equally changing career choices here. So who knows what it'll be next week or the week after or by 13 or 14. We'll see.
Love that. I want to bring you back to something you said because
Yeah.
you touched on, like Tamara said, a lot of different things. One thing that stood out to me was you said that negative self-talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we talk to ourselves and that self-image is so big. Like, I mean, Tamara, she helps her clients with it all the time. It's such a big part of how we see ourselves and where we end up landing based on our
Yeah.
self-image. And so if you want, I mean, just if you can elaborate just a little bit on how you have such a clear and strong self-image and how that really shapes your results in life.
So I would be lying if I said I never negatively self-talk or I have a lot of imposter syndrome. So for those of you guys that are starting out, like that doesn't really go away. You just get more used to dealing with it and doing things despite having that. Um, but I'll tell you, like for raising daughters, especially, I am very, very cognizant about how I talk about bodies and body image
Mm.
and so, you know, even when I have young girls, like some of my friends, like their teenage daughters, they'll like see my Instagram or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful and you have all the things." And as soon as I hear that, oh my gosh, I shut it down so fast. I'm like, "Girls, listen, this is not real life. There are teams, literal teams that are dedicated to my social media accounts. This happens because I have great lighting and I have production and professional cameras and I have people who tell me the things that I need to be saying and doing. And then I have hair and I have makeup and I have wardrobe and I have like Botox and fillers in my face. And sometimes I'll hear women that are like in their 40s go, "Why do you have to say that? You don't have to tell people that it's fillers and Botox." And I'm like, "No, I do, because young girls like my daughters are watching this and comparing themselves to something that's just an unrealistic beauty standard. Like it's just that simple. This is
Mhm.
not something you're going to ever achieve just by waking up in the morning and putting yourself on camera. Like in order to achieve what I am doing on social media, you need a lot of time and money and energy and effort and pain. Like Botox and fillers are painful, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I'm like very open and I talk about this a lot, because I don't want people, young girls, to compare themselves to something that they're not going to be able to achieve. And I think that it's important that we talk about that and we show up in this way and we're authentic about what we're doing. And I do it because I like it. And yes, probably there's like some amount of stress from society about what is considered beautiful and what is considered, to be the standard. So I'm sure that that exists there. But, I like it. I do it for me. It's the same way my girls, like this one, Via, she loves makeup. And I let her play with makeup if it makes her feel good. I'm all about it. My other one, like, she could not be bothered. She's my tomboy. But I tell her, I never, when she puts on her play makeup or whatever, I'm never like, "Oh my gosh, you look so beautiful." I say, "Oh, you're always beautiful. We don't wear makeup to feel beautiful. We wear makeup to feel fancy." That's what I tell them. Um,
Mhm.
so anytime she wears makeup, I'm like, "Wow, you look so fancy." She's like, "And beautiful." I'm like, "Oh yeah, but you're always beautiful. Even without makeup, you're beautiful. We just do this to be fancy." So I think those like subtle distinctions are important,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking to young girls, young women. And I read this quote, and I could talk about this forever. But I read this quote that really changed my perspective. It was, "Stop talking negatively about your own body and your own looks, because one day your daughter will grow up and someone will tell her that she looks just like you.
Yeah.
And what are you saying to her when you speak negatively about yourself?"
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's a hard shift, especially when you grow. Like I was born in the '80s, so our generation like just didn't have that kind of intentionality from our parents. Like, they did the best they could, but like they didn't care about mindset. They didn't care about negative self-talk or image, or children were to be seen, not heard back then. And so it's just like a different world we're parenting in now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I mean, we're
Mhm.
both children of the 80s as
Mhm.
well. So we can relate 100%. And I mean, I grew up in a big family, rural, on a farm, and very old school mentality. Oh, yeah.
Oh
Like
my God.
beef, cattle, chickens, pigs, you name it. Oh, yeah. 1,000 acres, big, big farm, big old farm. Yeah.
In Canada?
Yeah. Up here in Canada. Yes.
They have
Yeah.
farms in Canada?
They do. I know. It's crazy, right?
Yep.
Tell me you're an ignorant American without telling me you're an ignorant American.
It's
It never
crazy.
crossed my mind that there would be 1,000-acre farms in Canada.
Yeah. Actually, well, here in Ontario is like some of the most fertile agricultural land in like North America. So we have really good agriculture here in
I didn't know that.
southwestern Ontario near Toronto.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love that. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
I should have,
that's,
but I
I
didn't.
mean, most Americans don't. That's okay. I don't
Yeah.
hold it against you.
We're like, we only care about America.
It's all good.
That's all right.
But I love that because like what you were saying is really instrumental in like when you grew up a certain way, right? We didn't have that kind of talk. We didn't have those types of things. And for us too, it's like we look at our kids and we're like, we want to instill them the things that we wish we had learned. And we had great upbringings, great childhoods. We love our parents dearly, but
Yeah.
this is just a totally different level
Yeah.
of like self-love and awareness.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's just truly a beautiful gift to give as a parent.
Yeah, I also think that our kids growing up now are so inundated with imagery. And the
Mm,
imagery that they're seeing is not really, because when we were kids, we're all kids of the 80s. I mean, when we saw a magazine, it was more or less the person. Maybe
Yep.
really good lighting, maybe really good
Yeah.
makeup, maybe really good hair,
hmm
Yeah.
but
Not
fairly
as
accurate. Whereas now with AI, the imagery that they're seeing, we even see it with our boys. Our older son, I mean, he'll say, Mommy, are my muscles big enough? Do I have a six pack? So even boys are conscious
hmm
of some sort of ideal that's out there. And they're also aware of how they, their self-image. And we're always trying to build up the confidence and the qualities in a human that's actually important. I'm curious, since we're on the topic, how has being a woman entrepreneur in an industry where 30% of investors are women, how can you speak to being a woman in this industry and being able to actually have the success that you now have?
I've had the success that I've had despite being a woman, despite being a minority. But it's definitely, I've had my fair share of challenges. And I think if I was a man, I probably would have gotten here sooner. And I probably would have had more opportunity. And it's okay. I mean, like, we're fine, but it's okay for me, but it's not okay for everybody else or the future generations. So I think we have to like continue working to change that. And I think the way that we do this is by having the men around us. Like, this is what I define as like a true alpha male is men who are not threatened by women, but who lift women up and recognize the value. Exactly. Exactly. Like your husband, my husband, like this is how you define an alpha male. An alpha male is not a man that like comes in and like screams at everybody and has like, the muscles and the cars and the planes. Like women deserve to be in the kitchen. Like that is
hmm
such beta male energy. It's unbelievable. And the reason it is because it's like, are you threatened? If you really are an alpha male, you should be able to compete with the best of the best, regardless of background. And if you feel threatened, you really can't be that alpha, right? And so, um, I'll say that there have been a lot of men that have championed me and have championed women in the space, and I'm so incredibly grateful because their voices are so strong and so powerful. And when they use that power to make sure that there's equity and inclusion, it creates a lot more change than any one woman can do on their own. But I think the other important component is making sure that as women we don't compete with each other. um,
Yeah.
like there's society tells us like, oh, there's only enough room for one woman at the top, and like that's total BS. Why? There's like 8 men running companies, why can't there be 8 women running companies, right? Like I just think that I want to work with the best. That's all I care about. I want the best. I want to work with the best. I want to be the best. I want to do the best. And I just think, statistically speaking, if 50% of your C suite is not women, 50% or more, right, is not women, then you just didn't care that much about working with the best, or you just think that women are not qualified. And I just fundamentally disagree with that because by every metric that an investor cares about, women make better investors than our male counterparts. And women led companies generate better returns for their investors. And so I want to work with the best. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
I love that.
100%.
Veena, I love that, and I have to say, like, as a man, and again, we're really bringing it down to labels, but like for me, I look at you and I go, Veena, you are an amazing investor, and
Yeah.
I don't put the label as
Right.
female
Yeah.
because I don't see competition of male female. I see
Mhm.
here's a human being who just crushed it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
like I never looked at you or other women and said like you're just a female investor.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
see you as so much more than a label.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't mean like, well, you're not like giving you the power as being a powerful woman. Do you get what I'm saying?
I absolutely do, and I know exactly what you're not saying like, oh, I don't see gender, because you recognize that there are challenges for women. I mean,
100%.
yeah, but you're also saying like, I don't want to reduce you down to
Yes.
like being a good woman investor. Like that's like saying like, oh, that was a really good race for a girl. Like
Right.
Right.
no,
Exactly.
Yeah.
it was like
Yeah.
it's like when everyone talks about Serena Williams, right? Like they just go, oh, they're talking to men. They're like, oh, you just are the greatest tennis player of all time, and they're like, what about Serena Williams? Because
Hmm.
she's really the greatest of all time. Period. She's also the greatest woman tennis player, but she's the greatest
Yes.
tennis player ever. Simone Biles, same thing, right? Like so there are women that just completely dominate men, women, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. And I think I totally appreciate what you're saying. And I
Yeah.
honestly think that men that show up in the way you do and champion women, like I don't know what can make you more alpha male than that. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, it's innate. Like, I want to support women. I love when I see my wife winning. I support her in her business. I want to see her thriving, happy, abundant. Like, I want to see her crush it, right? So I'm supportive of her every step of the way.
Love
I'm
that.
not threatened by my wife. I'm not threatened by women. I'm secure in my own. But
That's
like,
the part.
I don't know. I think that for me, I've just never seen labels, and
Yeah.
I think maybe that just comes from my upbringing. So like,
Yeah.
I don't see those labels that society gives, and I'm thankful for that because I'm able to see people as people and like and see how amazing they are as human beings. So like, even in you, like I see such an amazing human being, and I think that also on the flip side of that, when you do give it a label, it is inspiring for you to say to other women,
Yeah.
you can be so much more than outside of that label,
Yeah.
right? Because you can be a champion for so many.
Yeah. You don't have to play in a different league.
Yeah.
In this industry, you can be on par with anyone you want.
Absolutely. And I think that
Yeah.
like when women support women and help each other, that's when it becomes way more powerful, right? Because then you become like a force and a movement. And I've seen more of that. And I don't know if it's because like the sentiment of just business is changing now, or if it's because I'm like in my personal development that I've been actively like trying to manifest and look for and attract this, that I see
Yeah.
it more. I don't know which one, or maybe it's a little bit of both. But sorry.
Oh, poor
But
thing.
yeah, I definitely am seeing more and more women. And you know what I tell women now? I'm like, if your girlfriends do not cheer for you the way my girlfriends do, you got to get new girlfriends because, like, you cannot accept anything less than this standard because now you know it exists.
I love that.
Agreed.
I have one more question for you. How is it? Tamara needs to run soon to get the kids from school. What is for you? Because I imagine it's been challenging for you to balance like being such a massively successful entrepreneur, but then also having the role of mother. That is two massively like those are two huge
Those are two
roles.
full-time jobs.
There are two full
How do
time
you balance it?
like this, where I have my daughter sitting right here on my lap as we're
I love
recording
that.
this, coughing in my. The reality is no one balances it well. You just don't. And I think it's better for us to kind of like talk about the fact that we don't do it all because it again holds women to these unrealistic expectations, right? Like the reality is when I'm working, someone else is taking care of my kids. Like right now, YouTube is taking care of my daughter while I'm
Mhm.
sitting here, right? And when my other daughter is at school, right, her teachers are taking care of her. And then when I'm with my daughters and when I'm engaging with them, then someone else is running my business, right? My employees are running my business. I have automations, I have technology, I have partners that are
Mhm.
helping my business stay afloat. And so it's never really that I'm doing anything at 100% all of the time. But as a mom, I have a village. And it is so important that you have a village and a support system. I mean, like, honestly, single moms are like the real MVPs because
Mhm.
they do it. Like I really don't. I have a
No.
very hands-on husband. I have all four of the grandparents live a 10-minute walk away from me. So my girls see their grandparents every single day.
Mhm.
I have a nanny. I had no hair for the longest time. They're in preschool. We have drivers. I have someone who comes and organizes my house and cleans up. I have housekeepers. I have someone who does all my cooking. Like I have so much help that I can afford to take the time and energy and effort to run a business. But
Mm-hmm.
when you first start, you don't have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It is really hard. And sometimes it's just seeing another mom, right? Like sometimes we just need to be seen for the invisible labor that we do because we do a lot of it. Even if you don't have kids, like just in a marriage or a relationship, you do a lot more invisible labor than our male counterparts. There's a great book called Fed Up by Gemma Hartley. Highly recommend this book to like literally men, women, everybody should read this. When my husband and I both read it, it like transformed our marriage. Um,
Oh,
Wow.
ooh, we'll have to pick it up.
What's
What
it
is the
called?
name?
it's called Fed Up by Gemma
Set
Hartley.
Fed
up.
up. Okay, we'll
Yeah,
look it
and
up.
it's basically about the invisible labor and unpaid labor that women do. There are estimates that it's in like the trillions of dollars, the amount of unpaid labor that women do. And it's, it's those things like okay, I know that my dad's birthday is November 19th, right? And so I know that we need to think about what the gift we're going to get them is. So then I spend the time and energy and effort to remember his birthday, to think about what gift to give him, to think about the things he already has, what he could use, what he would like, to go research the best thing I'm going to give him, right? And then to buy it, then to wrap it, then to make sure we have a cake and we do a dinner and like everybody knows about it and everyone has the right dates and times and locations. And then my kids make a card, like all of that mental labor. No one paid me to do this, but I
Mm-hmm.
did all of those things because that's what creates our family unit and that's what brings our family joy. And so that's like unpaid labor and unrecognized labor, right? Like when I told my husband what happened to get this gift and this dinner together, he was like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "How do you think we all just showed up here at the same time knowing we were celebrating a birthday, right?" Like he just never had to think about it because I always thought about it for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we read that book, what ended up happening is he started just seeing and recognizing things that needed to be done or things that needed to be taken care of. And he just started executing on it without me delegating it to him. I didn't have to make the list, I didn't have to keep the list, and I didn't have to project manage our household after that. And so, like, if he walks by a cluttered table, he's no longer like, oh, Veena will get it, or Veena will instruct someone to get it, or she'll tell me if she wants me to put this away. He sees it and he goes, oh, this has to be cleaned up. And he'll start like cleaning up the clutter. And it just has made our marriage so much better because now I don't feel like I'm building a life for him. I feel like I'm building a life with him. And it's so
Big
important that,
difference.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's a partnership. And
Mm-hmm.
he's always been a great husband. Like, if I tell him, like, hey, take the trash out, I'll only have to ask him once and he will do it and he will execute. And I never have to ask him again. I don't have to nag him. He's great. But like, no one is giving me a list of things to do. I just am creating the list, and that's really hard. It takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot
Yeah.
of mental energy to do this. And so it's a great read. I highly recommend it for anybody who
Definitely. We'll definitely pick
Oh
it up.
yeah. I love
Absolutely.
that.
You should run.
I know I
Go,
should.
go.
Okay,
I'll
I'm
finish
gonna
up.
run. So nice chatting with you. I hope that you'll come back so we can chat
absolutely,
more.
yes, please go get those babies.
You
She's
too.
going to get the
Yes.
babies. I'm going to wrap up the podcast.
I might.
I love this.
Yes. So Veena, this has been amazing. You really, truly, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Of course,
It was funny because we were like talking about like which way we would like maybe the podcast to go. I'm like, let's just let it flow organically. Most of them we do, and I love that this episode really went down the focus of family and children and relationships because to everyone's core, whether you're an investor or not, that is who we are at the end of the day. We all have families, we all have relationships, many of us have kids, and so like those are the most important people in our lives, right?
absolutely.
So
Uh,
I appreciate your insight, I appreciate you sharing your journey. I also really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing like all that stuff about your self-image. Like most people don't share that behind the curtain, right? So that's really, really, truly inspiring. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share it. I think it's, and I think too, when you see someone show up in this way, it makes it easier to be brave and show up in this way for other people. So I hope that this will encourage someone else listening to be a little bit more authentic and show up in a way that feels good and in alignment with them.
I think so. I know so. And that's why we do the podcast, because we want to share our journey to really inspire, touch, and help, really spark something inside of someone to be like, you know what, that really resonated with me. I'm going to do this differently, or I'm going to seek out this differently, or I'm going to go now read that book or listen to that podcast or go to that event and really start a new path in life. And it's inspiring to us to have that ability. And I know, that as a public figure, to be able to have an influence, to be able to inspire other people is really a powerful thing.
Absolutely. We got to use our platforms for good, not evil.
100%. Yes. Purpose over profit. And what did you say at the beginning? You had a line. You said,
which one? I feel like I said
similar to purpose over profit, but you said now your business is
a mission of impact.
Mission of impact.
Yeah.
That was the line. I love that. Mission of impact. Yeah.
It is more rewarding than any dollar I've ever made. And I tell people, they're like, why do you do this? And I'm like, because the first time someone says to you, you changed my life.
Yep.
That's a drug that you will chase for the rest of your life.
100%.
And that's what I'm chasing, is like the high of knowing that someone else's family's trajectory has changed because of something I did.
Yes. That's why we became coaches.
I love it.
Like, I got a call last night from a guy who's working 3 jobs with 4 kids, and he's at the end of the rope.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks of coaching, he called me and said, "This is changing my whole family's life." I'm like, "Bro, you haven't even barely started the program yet. We're just talking about setting goals properly." And he's like, "You have impacted me already and changed my life already." And I'm like, "Holy cow." He's like, "My kids already see a difference." I'm like, "Dude, in 2 weeks?" I'm like, "Dude, this is why I do what I do. This is why I left a career in 6 figures in law enforcement. This is why, because when you impact someone else's life and their family's lives, that is like, you don't get that kind of fulfillment from anything else." Veena, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to see you again. Are you going to be in Boston at the Owners Retreat this weekend?
I won't. I am in Phoenix this weekend. I'm speaking at an event. Actually, no, I'm speaking in Dallas and then in Phoenix.
Amazing.
And then I go straight from there to Santa Barbara for another event. I have like a bunch of events back to back to back. So it's crazy.
I love that. You and I will be on stage together. I guarantee it one day.
I hope so.
Pace is helping all the owners clubs with their keynotes. And I was on stage here in Canada with Keyspire. We spoke on stage right before Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, right before Shaquille O'Neal. It was pretty crazy. Packed the room, and it was an amazing event. And so I'm starting to perfect, the public speaking and getting into it, and I love it. Like you, I'm a massive extrovert, so this is just super exciting for me. But I can't wait to see you. I will definitely see you at Squad Up. Yes, can't wait, because it's in Dallas.
I heard. I didn't know that. I just found out like last week that it's going to be in Dallas. And so, it'll be amazing.
Yes, we will be there. Wife will be there. It's going to be amazing. For everyone listening, where can they find you?
So you can find me on all the social medias as Veena Jetti, but if you go to my Instagram, I actually respond to my own messages there. So it's the place I'm most active, Veena Jetti, VEENAJETTI. And if you want to learn more about multifamily, I have a free Facebook group called Mastering Multifamily with Veena Jetti, and I do free calls. I try to do them at least once a month, if not more. So anybody can join those calls and just learn about multifamily.
I love that. And I can speak from experience that I know many people that are in Veena's program, and they absolutely love it. Your program is phenomenal. Your community is phenomenal. You are amazing. I have nothing but love and support for you. So thank you so much for coming on. And you also have a fund. I want to make sure that people know about that as well.
Yeah. So if you want to learn about being a passive investor, you can go to our website, Vive Funds, VIVEFUNDS.com. We have an investor portal. You can log in. You can always see any of our open offerings. If we have an open offering, there'll be an OM. There will also be a webinar that we usually do to talk about the deal. So you can go watch all of that and learn about what we're doing, what we're working on. Would love to have any accredited investors into our deals.
Amazing. Yeah. For anyone that's looking to invest money, this is a great spot. They have a fund. Veena is crushing it. And if you didn't catch the very beginning of the call, that's $1 billion in assets with a B. That's a lot of assets. So there's a ton of experience there. So what better place to invest if you're an accredited investor? If you're looking for somewhere, especially this time of the year, it's the end of the year. You're looking to defer some taxes. It's a great time to put some money to work passively. So highly recommend vivefunds.com, right?
Yes, vivefunds.com.
Love it. I love it. Thank you, Veena. We'll see you soon.